Hello, everyone. Hope you're well and welcome to Match Day 3 Preview Day. I am once again joined by Callum. Good afternoon, Callum.
Good afternoon, Sam. How are we?
We're doing well. Very much looking forward to getting smacked and bent over by Birmingham City this weekend, to be honest.
Oh, you might not even have a manager for it.
No, we'll get onto that. I don't particularly want to talk about the topic, but I think we've got to. So on this week's show, the 4 games we've picked are 8 teams that we didn't talk about last week. So the four games are Burton Albion versus Stevenage, a game that kicks off at 12:30. I'm quite interested to actually talk about why this game is at 12:30. Exeter City versus Peterborough United, Huddersfield Town and Shrewsbury Town, and then Leyton Orient versus Birmingham City. They're the 4 games. But before we do any of that, we're going to have a review of last week's scores on the doors. So I got 6 correct outcomes last week, no correct results. I got Shrewsbury versus Peterborough, Cambridge, Crawley, Huddersfield, Stevenage, Mansfield, Burton, Rotherham, Bristol, Rovers, and Wycombe, Birmingham outcomes correct. Mr. Callum,
Hello.
you got 8 points.
Get in there.
You got 5 correct outcomes, but you got the correct score for Cambridge United versus Crawley Town. So congratulations to you. You have won the first week. So you currently lead 6-8.
I feel like it was a fluke, but we'll see.
Well, we will see going into this week in terms of what the predictions are. I've, for the first time in a very long time, left them all blank. So this is going to be, in the heat of the moment, what is my score going to be this week?
Oh, this is new. Welcome to the aura zone, as they call it.
Yeah, so we'll see. Basically, I'm going to near enough go opposite to you, and we'll see what happens. So obviously we've had a bit of intriguing news, shall we say, in League One this week, with Blackpool manager Neil Critchley losing his job after the only 2 games. However, Blackpool have lost both. So the first question I'll ask you is, was he quite lucky to even keep his job after the end to last season, shall we say?
I don't think he was lucky to keep his job. Don't get me wrong, Blackpool, they're a side that I think they've had a bit of an up and down couple of last decade or so. Obviously been in the Premier League, what was it, 2011? Something off the top of my head. And then obviously they had, I think, quite a bit of financial issues as well, didn't they? So they're still kind of finding where they are almost as a football club, if that makes sense. Are they a Championship club? Are they a League One club? So I think they're still kind of finding out that sort of thing. I think they obviously, every club wants to aim higher, and the resources and the facilities that Blackpool have probably means they should be higher up than where they finished last year, playoffs at least almost. But I wouldn't say he was lucky to keep his job, but then you can't go into this start of the season -4 goal difference, 5 goals conceded after 2 games. You know, it's not a great start. So. And I suppose if they get a manager in quick enough, I mean, there's only, a week left of the transfer window, a week and a day. Might give a new manager a chance to at least get one more signing in. I don't know. But they've got to move quickly, I think, to not get the season off to an even worse start.
Yeah, I think it's the 2 teams obviously were promoted as well that Blackpool played. Crawley, you probably would expect them to beat Crawley. Stockport is probably a bit more difficult, albeit they were at home and their home form was for the most part pretty decent last year. It was their away form that actually made them fall away. But I was surprised that he actually kept his job at the end of last year. I think that squad should have probably got in the playoffs. His system doesn't seem to fit the players that he's actually got. A Blackpool fan tweeted us at League One Lowdown. It said they're sort of, all they really needed to do was go to a 4-3-3 type system, because he was playing people like CJ Hamilton, Rob Apter actually at wing back instead of further up the pitch, which was causing issues. So it may just literally be the new manager goes in, looks at the players and goes, I can be adaptable, and just changes the system, and they quickly kick on. The squad there is decent. They have decent players. So we'll have to wait and see with Blackpool. The current favourite is a man I don't want to hope leave, is Richie Wellens is currently the favourite, a former Blackpool player, promoted with them, funnily enough, against Leyton Orient in a playoff final. I think it was in 2003, 2002, 2003. He actually played in the playoff final at the Millennium Stadium, where Blackpool beat Orient to get into League One. Richie Wellens is the current favourite. I think it'd be a job that would appeal to someone like a Richie Wellens. It's closer to his home, a club he has a affinity with, a bit like when he went to Oldham and Doncaster. Obviously, the Blackpool fans would love him. He's a proper character on the touchline, a bit opposite to a Neil Critchley, shall we say. His football is entertaining. It's high pressing. It's attacking, which is probably what the Blackpool fans want. His favoured system would suit the players they've got in a 4-3-3. The only sticking point, I suppose, would be that he has just signed a new 3-year contract with the club. That contracts me naffle in football nowadays. Contracts are literally just there to maximise your money that you will get for him. So depending what his break clause is, they may get him for 100 grand, something like that. I don't know. It'll be a huge loss if that was to happen, but that's football. On my other managers on the list, I've got Ryan Lowe, obviously just let go from Preston. Did a really good job at Bury before they went, unfortunately, under. Did a very good job with Plymouth before leaving to go to Preston and maintain them as a top 10, top 12 championship club, which with the budget that Preston have is exceptional. But would he drop down to League One? Not so sure. The other manager I got on my list is Gareth Ainsworth. But can he manage away from a team like Wycombe? Not so sure. He's probably quite enjoying his music at the moment, is old Gareth as well. The other man that isn't on my list is Brian Barry Murphy from City's under-21s group. He's done exceptionally well with a lot of youngsters coming now through at City. It'd be a risky appointment, but it'd be a different appointment if they wanted to go away from the grain, so to speak.
I think the other manager I'd picked out was Scott Lindsay. Now I've seen on social media we come under criticism from I think it's mainly Stockport and Crawley fans for saying that they're here to make up the numbers, really, which has been proved wrong over the past. I don't think I've ever said that. I might have said it in the
I haven't.
episode. I think I might have said it in the preview episode or something like that. But and it might kind of annoy Crawley fans what I'm going to say about Scott Lindsay, but I almost feel like he might be outperforming the ceiling of that club in its current guise, right? I mean, we've seen with Lincoln, and we always use our own clubs as a comparison, don't we? But Lincoln, they were a National League side, and then they obviously invested, and now they're a League One side. Lincoln City they're an established League One side. I think there's still work to do for Crawley There's still work for Crawley to do in terms of investing in that training facilities, and I'm not entirely sure what they're doing off the pitch. I don't follow them probably as closely as Crawley fans will point out to me. But then what I have said is why would he move? What's his motivation for moving? Okay, Blackpool they're a bigger club, don't get me wrong, but everything seems to be going well at Crawley, right?
It does now, yeah. Now the
do you know what I mean?
Has come back.
Yeah, but it seems to be going all right? 6 points, the 4th in the league. Even if they do have a bad rest of the season, they've still got probably more points than a lot of us expected them to get already. Yeah. So, I don't know why he'd move, but yeah, I think it's between probably Ryan Lowe and Wellens as well. But I think Scott Lindsay for me would be a bit of an outside shout just in case.
I think it just depends if Blackpool want to pay compensation, I suppose, isn't it? I think there's enough managers out of work currently that would probably tickle their fancy.
You hope there's enough.
I hope as well. I hope, but knowing like Wellens has managed 2 clubs that he's already played for in Oldham and Doncaster. He then came to us after Doncaster. It would be a big step up for him to go to Blackpool. I think they've got near enough a squad that's ready for top 6. It just needs to be utilised properly, which I don't think Critchley was doing. But we will see. Only time will tell with that one. I'm sure some rumours will start floating around soon.
If it is between Ryan Lowe and Richie Wellens, the one thing I will say is apparently when Lowe left, I read somewhere that apparently it was because Ryan Lowe wants a break. Apparently he initiated this conversation about leaving after a game because he wants a break. So it would be slightly funny if, 2 weeks after leaving Preston, he was straight back at another club. But
you never know. Neil Warnock might surprise us again. He might come out of retirement. Fancy a year at the seaside in Blackpool instead of where he is now at Torquay. So I pray that Wellens doesn't leave, but we will see. So we're going to introduce a new little feature that we are doing this week in terms of you've got to pick one fantasy EFL League One player that you will have in your team this week.
That's bold because I don't play it. I don't play it. So I'm going to pretend to be an outside expert here. I don't have enough time. I've never got on FPL. I could not tell you how many points you get for a goal or anything. So I'm purely guessing here, but I think it's kind of linked to one of the games we'll get on later on in the show. I was tied between two players. I think it purely depends on which one of them starts. But I'm going to put in quotation marks, an Huddersfield striker.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I think you've got the same player as me then.
Well,
we've both got Huddersfield players.
Well, the thing is, I feel like it's fairly obvious. I put Kamara or Marshall. I think it purely depends on which one of them starts. They've both got the same amount of goals so far this season. I think Kamara starts.
I think Karoma will start.
Karoma, sorry, not Kamara. Karoma, sorry. I think Karoma will start, but Callum Marshall does have. I think they both have one goal so far this season.
Yeah,
so
he may even play two because he's played two up front sometimes this year.
Yeah,
so far already.
But I think that's just the obvious call, and I don't play this game, so
I would probably end up with someone like a Lasse Sorensen.
If you go for assist points, yeah,
and you get
he'll probably score from the halfway as well, or some shit like that. So
you get passes for assists, and you get points for passes completed, interceptions, stuff like that as well. So someone like a Lasse Sorensen, basically anyone from Huddersfield, and you'll be fine. I think that's what we're going for this week.
I suppose, do you have them rules where you can only have like 3 players from each side or something?
You can only have 2, yeah. So basically, pick your 2 Huddersfield players.
Just pick Huddersfield, Sorensen, and then one of Marshall or Karoma, and you'll be fine.
Yep. So we're going to move on to quickly some transfer news before getting into our first game. Obviously, Femi Azeez was probably the big one from this week, leaving Reading, who have had an exceptional start, I must say. Drawing with Birmingham, a really good draw against Birmingham, and then winning their last fixture against Wigan. But losing, Femi Azeez has obviously played only 20 minutes so far this season, but was a huge factor in probably why Reading finished where they did last year. Moving up, at least he's moved up a level, I suppose, to Millwall in the Championship. But having said that, Millwall will probably be in League One next year. So how do you think Reading will use the money to replace him, depending on their ownership situation? Because I know I saw Rob last week post a picture just outside Reading's training ground, even though I've not seen a confirmed announcement at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think it's not been fully completed. I think if new owners do come in before next week, I mean, they already look incredibly clued up on like what the squad needs in terms of transfer wise. Whether they can come in and in a week, that's assuming it gets done either today, as we're recording this on the Thursday, or at some point the rest of this week. You can't imagine it'll get done Saturday, Sunday, or whatnot. But whether they'd have time to, I don't get me wrong, I think they'd want to reinvest that money, but I don't think they've got the time to. And even if, they'll want to do it, but the paperwork and everything in terms of to actually do that, not sure they'll be able to. So obviously it's a huge loss. Huge loss is Femi Azeez. But I think they'll want, like I say, they'll want to, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, because obviously Kamara's kind of taken his role over this year. I've not seen enough of Kamara, so I can't comment, but it didn't play as too much last season. So it'll be wait to see if he can replicate sort of quality, because obviously I know they've started very well, but when you've got someone like Femi Azeez in a tight game where you're maybe losing 1-0 and you want to get a goal for just a point, he will. Femi Azeez is a player that basically will win you points on his own. And I don't know, other than probably Kelvin E, as I'm going to call him, because I can't pronounce his last name. I don't know if they have that going forward, because Lewis Wing's probably more of a deeper sort of player who scores a worldie every 6 months and everyone's lauding him.
You do wonder if they've not. I don't think they've still not signed anyone, have they?
They've signed a goalkeeper and then he went back to the club that he came from.
Because they I'm just on their what's it called, their first team on their website. They've got 3 goalkeepers, fine. They've got 9 defenders. So if you think 2 of them get injured, you're already into the depths. I can't remember off the top of my head what formation they play, but they've only got 6 midfielders and 5 forwards. So that squad is only 3-4 injuries off being bare bones already.
Yeah.
So you wonder they've got to get the most amount of points they can in this first half of the season before injuries really start to hit, right?
Yeah, hopefully the takeover's done Bank Holiday Monday. That would be nice for Reading fans, and then they've got a week to try and 4 or 5 days to get some loan players in just to bulk up the squad a little bit. So moving on to Cambridge United, they've obviously signed a couple of players this week. Josh Stokes on loan from Bristol City, who was exceptional for Aldershot in the National League last year with 15 goals from midfield. And then Emmanuel Longolo, a left back on loan from Cambridge United. He made 45 appearances for Birmingham over the past 2 seasons. Obviously, with the start that Cambridge have had, no goals, 3 conceded. I think it's important that they actually added a bit of creativity and flair to a team that's a bit rigid in terms of Josh Stokes. And I really like the signing of Longolo. Whenever I've watched him for Birmingham, I actually thought he was really, really good defensively. He's quick. He's good going forward. His final ball's a bit iffy, but defensively, I thought he was all right. He's quick, he's pacey, and he's much better than probably Danny Andrew, who got skinned multiple times last week. I saw some Cambridge fans not being overly happy with his performance last week. So I think 2 very good signings for Cambridge. They're using the loan market effectively, which at this level in this season, they've got to do properly. So I think two really good additions for Cambridge United.
I think you look at the loan market, and you're kind of thinking now, why? Like, you'd think now it'd have already sprung into action, and I think we spoke about it on a preview episode. I think we got a question about it. Why has there been like next to no loan signings? And it's still, I still think it's very curious as to why we've not had a huge amount of them. And maybe this is probably a bit of a coup for Cambridge, because like you say, that they're good players for both, like for Birmingham, pretty much 2 half seasons in the Championship for Longelo, and then obviously a lot of goals in the National League as well for Stokes. So you're kind of thinking, if they're adding these players on loan, maybe there were hopes that, I think Stokes, this is probably the right level. I mean, that the jump from the National League to League One is huge. It's huge. So hopefully that's not a step too far for him. But Longelo, I'm a huge fan of that signing, and maybe I think Birmingham were hoping that. I suppose they don't want him to go to a promotion rival, do they? Because so I think it's probably I think it's very good, very clever. I don't want to say political signings from Cambridge, making sure they stayed out of the way of Birmingham, but they've snuck one under the noses of, I think, some of their relegation rivals with that one.
Yeah, I would have happily had him with us. We need a left back, so I'd have happily taken him, but it's a good signing for Cambridge nevertheless. So moving on to our first game of the episode is Burton Albion versus Stevenage. A game that, for some unknown reason, due to this new TV shitty deal, kicks off at 12:30. Now, I would love to see the viewing numbers for this game, because unless you are a fan of these 2 clubs, you're going to look at the game and think, why in God's name would I watch that?
Yeah, I feel like, obviously, it's on Sky Sports, is it? It's not on. Is it Sky Sports Plus or is it?
Yeah,
it's on Sky Sports Plus. this is the thing, right? If this was just on Sky Sports, like just Sky
Yeah,
Sports,
fine.
if it was on Sky Sports 1, that it's just on like a TV channel that you can flick through, I'd probably watch it. But because for this Sky Sports Plus, I need to know. It's sheer laziness from me, don't get me wrong, that I can't be bothered to download an app and subscribe to it or whatever. I can't be bothered to do that, purely. So, I don't know. I think it's still a bit weird. And it's because of the way that it's done so you can watch it. It's not really for the casual fan, I don't think. And obviously it's at a time where those casual fans that are interested in League One football enough to watch this game are already heading to games, aren't they? So,
yeah,
I can't imagine they're going to be through the roof. But no, it does have the hallmarks for a little bit of an interesting game, I think.
Yeah, so some stats on this game. So I'm going to start going into stats now because we played 2 match days, and I think I like talking stats. So the last meeting actually between the two sides was in April, which was the game where Martin Patterson went over to the fans and did his fist pumps for them to nearly be relegated the following week. So this was kind of the victory that kept Burton up in the end. 80% of the meetings between the two sides have had over 1.5 goals in. So Burton this season have got the joint worst defensive Wycombe Wanderers, conceding 6, but are one of the best attacking units with the 4th most XG, with 3.7. They have the 2nd most accurate crosses. I mean, with someone like Danilo Orsi, who can take the ball down, can head the ball, you're going to want to get crosses in the box. Stevenage have the most successful tackles per 90, which is kind of an epiphany of a Steve Evans-like team, I suppose. It's near enough the same team. They're 3rd for XG with 4, but they've only scored 2, with 2 of the 4. So 1.5 XG of the 4 is penalties, because it works out roughly 0.75 XG for a penalty. So you could take that off, then you're looking at 2.5 from open play, which is then mid-table-ish for Stevenage.
I think it's interesting, Burton Albion this year. I think my predictions for them have so far sort of come true. It will take a while for them to gel, but everything I've heard from them and everything, watching them against Lincoln and whatnot, they've had a good start to the season. I think that they've gone slightly under the radar. So they got the first win in midweek against, I think it was Leicester City under 21s. Although weirdly, the manager saying he was disappointed in it. So they did have to come from behind, I think, to win. I think it was 3-2 in the end. So, but Billy Bowden, top scorer in the league with 3, only played to score 3 so far. Looks like a great, I think, signing for them. Is he on loan or something? I'm not sure.
No, I believe he signed from Oxford.
He signed permanent. I think that's a great deal. Already looking very, very good. And Stevenage haven't scored in the first half yet this season. Is another thing I found out. So I think if Burton can do what they did against Lincoln and get firing straight away, then I think they'll be all right. I think they'll win this comfortably. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go 2-1 Burton. I think it'll be 2-0, and then they'll get one in the. I think Stevenage will get one in the second half again, as always.
Okay, yeah, I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this one. I think Burton's squad, while it's gelling, it's going forward, it's gelling quite nicely. They look fluid. They've got nice little patterns going forward, but defensively, they're still a bit all over the place, which is understandable with such a big overhaul out of possession. It's going to take you probably a little bit longer to get it right than in possession, because you can rely on your flary players like Ben Whitfield, for example, to bail you out in certain situations. But they look decent-ish, I suppose. Burton and Stevenage look like Stevenage, shall we say?
It's nice to be. I can't believe I'm saying this after all the shit I've given Burton, but it's almost nice to be excited about them. Like they do look like a football club that now actually has decent investment, and once this squad is going in the right direction, I think they might do all right.
Okay, so you've got 2-1s for Burton, and I have 1-1 to 1-1 draw, shall we say. So we're going to have a quick ad break now, and then we'll come back and talk the remaining 3 games and give our predictions for the remaining games. Okay, welcome back to part 2. So the second game on our list is Exeter City versus Peterborough United. So the last meeting was in March, which Posh won at their place. And the last meeting at St James's Park, Exeter won. So the home teams came out on top last season. And every meeting between the two sides is at over 1.5 goals, which, to be fair, is a pretty useless stat. But there's always goals in the games. Exeter City this season are 8th in terms of XG with 2.9, have the 4th most possession, the 2nd most touches in the opposition box, and are 6th in XG conceded with 3.2. Peterborough, on the other hand, have the 2nd most average possession. So we've got two teams that like to keep the ball. Peterborough 5th in terms of XG with 3.6, and they are the maths 7th best in terms of XG conceded with 2.1.
I think I've written down one thing for each side here. Exeter, a very average start. They've had a home win and an away loss. So very average. I think they're smack bang middle of the table. I can't remember where they are. They're just 16th. So very, very average, middle of the table so far. A bunch of teams on 3 points. So including Lincoln, which is depressing. But we'll get to that. Peterborough United, I've put down one word for them, and that's bipolar. I feel like Peterborough, and they will be this year. We saw it last year as well. Just the definition of bipolar. They'll be incredible and score so many goals, and we'll see that again this year. And then they'll also concede goals against teams that you just think, why are you conceding 3 to bloody, I don't know, to Shrewsbury? Why are you conceding 3? Like, that will happen this season. Hold me to that one. So I think I can see Peterborough breaking that home team winning thing. I think it'll be 3-1. I can kind of see Peterborough. I don't know. I'm kind of getting the sense that if that's the correct scoreline, I'm a genius. But I do think Peterborough will win 3-1.
I've gone for another draw here. But I've gone for a 2-2 draw this time, mainly because I think Exeter City's experience was coming to play here. Exeter are a lot more physical than an Exeter team that I've seen previously, especially with someone like Josh McGuinness up front. And Peterborough's team is still very... I think this year, more than most with the players they've lost a lot of experience and they've brought more youth in. I think it's going to take a little while for them to actually kick into gear, but we can't doubt their attacking talents. They could rock up one week and score 6, but then the next week, like you say, they could score 1 or nothing and create nothing at all. So that's why I've gone for a 2-2 draw. I think they'll score goals, but the physicality of this Exeter team will... So I fully expect Exeter to score from a corner. Let's put it that way. So then third game on our list is Huddersfield Town versus Shrewsbury Town. Good old Shrewsbury Town starting like they mean to go on with 1 goal, 5 conceded, losing both games, scoring 3 in the EFL trophy against Notts County with winning on penalties. Paul Hurst doing his little fist pump that I've made a comment on Twitter, and I had a good discussion with a Shrewsbury fan about it. I can't really say much for them losing 2 because actually Orient have lost both games, but the teams we've played, I can verify that. The last league meeting between these two sides was actually in 2016, so it's been nearly 9 years since they met each other, which Shrewsbury actually won 2-1.
Huddersfield, they've been in the Prem since then, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been up to the Prem and back down. Huddersfield have had the most possession, 1 in the final third per 90. They're 18th in terms of XG conceded, so the 6th best with 2.1, and they're 7th in terms of XG with 3.3. Shrewsbury Town have the most XG conceded with 5.5, which is half and more than anyone else, and they have the worst XG in the league with 1. So a contrasting of two teams, especially considering Huddersfield have won both their games as well.
I think I've put on mine that Huddersfield have gone with what I call the Portsmouth approach. And I think I suggested that Birmingham needed to take this approach last year. But it seems that Huddersfield have kind of picked them to the post on this one, where they are just they're solid at home. They're nothing special at home. They just get the points done at home. They do what they need to do. And then away from home, that's kind of where they're less structured, but just the quality of the players allow them to shine through. If that makes sense, I think we saw that a lot with Portsmouth last year. and it wouldn't surprise me if Huddersfield saw that and were just like, yeah, do you know what? Let's go with the same thing again. I do think that's how you get promoted in this league. I think it was kind of it was almost like straight from the playbook with Huddersfield last year, with Portsmouth last year. So it would not surprise me if we see more of that going forward. As for Shrewsbury, yeah, very, very worrying. I feel like everything we said about Crawley, we should probably move over to Shrewsbury at this point. So yeah, I feel like this is one where we're not going to get crap for it on social media for saying. I think their fans are fully in agreement that
it's
something
a difficult
else
season. Yeah,
it's going to be difficult, and their aim is survival. I don't think it's going to be hugely high scoring again. I can see a 2 or a 3-0 is my issue here. Saying what I said about Fantasy League, I feel like I've got to go with 3-0. One for Karoma, one for Sorensen as well, and then one for Marshall as well.
I've got 3-0. So we've got the same score on that one. So the final deeper dive game is Leyton Orient versus Birmingham City. I don't really know where to start on this one because it's two
0 points from 9 games.
9 games. I bloody hope not.
From 9, 0 points from 9 available.
Quite possibly, shall we say? I think we've got a team in Orient who have probably had the hardest start of any League One team. I think it's fair to say, playing Bolton on your opening day, Charlton on your second game, and then Birmingham on your third game. The top 3 in our predictions this year. So I don't think we could have probably asked for a harder start. The last meeting between the sides was in 2002 in the Cup, where Birmingham won 3-2. Actually, the last league meeting was in 1994. So none of us were actually born the last time Orient and Birmingham played a league game against each other. Both teams won.
I wasn't born when they played in the Cup. So
oh god, that makes me feel old. So far this season, Birmingham have averaged 73% possession over their first 2 games, and they are best in terms of XG conceded with 1.1. On the flip side of that, Orient have the 4th best in terms of XG conceded. Only Charlton, Wigan, they're 19th in terms of XG conceded with 1.9. So they're 5th best in terms of XG out of possession. The problem with Orient is in possession, where they're 21st in terms of expected goals, which is only worse. But Charlton, Wigan, and Shrewsbury are the only 3 teams that are worse. But considering the teams we've played, it's probably fair. We didn't expect to beat Bolton. 60% of the fan base didn't expect to beat Bolton, and probably the same with Charlton. Obviously, it was a kicker conceding late to Charlton, which could harm morale of the squad. I think the signing of Jamie Donnelly is extremely exciting on loan from Spurs, and I'm quite intrigued to see how Wellens picks a team now to face Birmingham. Obviously, out of possession, I think Orient are pretty good. We shuffle well. We're defensively, I do worry, depending what centre-backs he's going to pick. If we've got Omar Beckles at the back after his disastrous coming on against Charlton, where he just decided to wrestle with every single player that came near him, I have a feeling Birmingham could be getting a couple of penalties. Left side of our defence, where Beckles did come on for, we've got a left-back in James Sweeney, who will probably play. He's a bit ropey defensively, and with the quality that Birmingham have going forward, I'm rather concerned that this could be a bit of a rout. For us as Orient fans, I think it's just see what happens. It's a free hit. I don't think any of us expect to get anything against Birmingham. If you're playing for Orient or you're part of the coaching staff, it's probably one you'd relish in terms of if you do get anything from the game, it's a bloody good job. But you're not expected to get anything, so you kind of hopefully play with a bit of freedom. But I do worry that Birmingham's quality, especially going forward, could cause a lot of issues, and I think Birmingham could be on the wrong side of a rollicking if our press isn't right, If one player doesn't jump, then Birmingham have the quality, unlike most teams in this league, just to knock it round you. Obviously, they drew with Reading. They beat Wycombe 3-2, so they've not had it all sailing defensively. But that was, again, it's a bit like the team with Burton. It's not going to be perfect yet out of possession because they've got so many new bodies. But in possession, they just look really creative and fluid. And for that reason, I have gone again for 3-0 to Birmingham City.
The one question I've got is, do you think, kind of in a similar way we kind of suspect that that it happened with Steve Evans last year, do you sort of think that his eyes might have been turned? Not specifically by a job, but by the fact that he did quite well by all accords with Orient last year. That he knows that it looks like the manager market's moving quite early this year. Well, earlier than it ever has done, really. Do you think that, obviously no team hopes their manager's that tight, but we kind of have to, there are going to be clubs with higher budgets for employing 100%. Managers that will be able to pay him a bigger wage. Obviously, closer to, does he live in Orient?
He lives near Manchester.
He's a Manchester boy, isn't he? So, will he want to move somewhere closer to his family? Even just that, it might be a reason why his head's turned. So,
I think we'll know when Wellens does his pre-match tomorrow. I will know from that, because you can tell with someone like Wellens, you can tell with the way he speaks. So that will be interesting. The only thing I think Blackpool may put off Blackpool is Wellens' temperament on the touchline. In the opening 2 games of the season, he's been booked twice.
Well, they did employ Michael Appleton.
This is true.
Not stopped them before.
This is true. But the thing with Wellens is he knows his job is very, very safe. Obviously, extremely secure with us. He's just signed a new 3-year contract. He's obviously committed to our project.
Yeah.
And if he did ever get us to the Championship, which obviously it's not going to happen this year, and if it does, it's a bloody miracle. If he got us to the Championship, which I think he can, we fucking build him a statue.
Yeah.
He will be lauded forever. He's a big fan favourite with us, as he would be with Blackpool. I personally don't think he will go. I'm going to be positive. I don't think he will, purely because he had just signed a contract. If he didn't sign that contract, he would be in his last year of his previous deal. So I think, yes, he would go. But I don't think he would disrespect the owners and leave now. Or he wouldn't try and force a move through, shall we say. If Blackpool came to him, then possibly, but I don't think he'd be actively trying to get that job.
I think, back to the game that's more important. I do think that regardless of whether his head's being turned or not, I do think you're in for a tough run. I'm not as pessimistic 100%. As you. I don't know. It's almost weird to see you so downbeat about Orient. I'm not used to this. I'm like, crap, how am I the one that's going to be more positive about Orient here? I'll go 2-1. I do think Birmingham will win. But 2-1, I do think you'll give them a bit more of a game than you give them credit for.
Yeah, I think midfield-wise, I'm fine. Attacking-wise, I'm fine. I just personally don't trust certain members of who I've mentioned of our defence. And our goalkeeper's made 2 clangers in 3 games as well, which doesn't overly help the situation. So I pray that we've both now jinxed this and we go and tonk Birmingham, because when we do next week's podcast, I'll be the happiest person on earth.
I'd say it'd be great for the league, wouldn't it?
Yeah, especially considering we've now got Millwall in the cup next week as well. And I'm debating whether to go or not.
Yeah, you're losing that.
So that's the end of our deep dive. So now we're going to go into the quick fire rounds in terms of what we think will happen for the remaining games. First off is Stockport County, who haven't conceded, versus Bristol Rovers, who haven't conceded. And after Steve Evans' comments last week when they played and drew 0-0, I think it was, I think he's pretty salty at the moment, is Big Steve. Rovers have actually conceded 3.2 XG and not conceded, which is quite funny. With this, Stockport start is excellent. They haven't conceded, scored 5 goals. Bristol Rovers have scored the 1 goal. and conceded 0. So both teams pretty decent starts. Stockport County have injuries, but they've coped pretty well with the injuries. It's a really tricky one. I will go 1-0 to Stockport.
I'm on the Stockport hype train. I've decided this. 2-0. Sod it.
2-0. Yeah, I've mentioned many times that Stockport are the team that I think have done the best business in League One.
I'm very much on the hype train. I didn't have much faith. I think I can't remember where I put them in pre-season at all.
I think
but whatever it is, I'm tearing them up because they're doing very well.
Yeah, I really like the recruitment. I think their squad's so balanced. So, yeah, hopefully we're both correct on this one. Is Barnsley versus Northampton Town. Now, Northampton have actually won a game and lost a game so far, so a pretty decent start. And they've gone like they always seem to do, is go under the radar. They've not made any what I call marquee signings. They've just been sensible. A Barnsley side who have won a game and lost a game. They were pretty decent last time out after a disappointing half an hour against Mansfield, because I thought they were pretty good for large parts of that game. A home game you'd expect Barnsley to win.
Against Lincoln, they were all right, but they weren't blow your head off good. Is what I'll say. They weren't playoff or title chasers at all. But at home against Northampton Town, I do think they'll have the I don't know what to say about, but they'll have enough. It's probably the best to say 2-0.
2-0. Okay, I've gone for 2-1 to Barnsley in that one. I think they'd be pretty disappointed. No offence to Northampton, if Barnsley at home didn't beat Northampton Town.
They're two sides with completely different aspirations, I suppose. Yeah. Different aims of what would be a successful season. So
yeah. Speaking of two sides that were looking for different aspirations this season, Blackpool and Cambridge, both teams without a win, sitting in 22nd and 23rd place. One without a manager, one signed 2 decent players this week. So there's probably a different feeling around the fan base. Yes, Cambridge have had a really poor start, losing to Crawley Town as well in that. There could be a different sort of feeling now with 2, I think, pretty good signings this week. And obviously Blackpool sacking Neil Critchley. I've read some of the replies. They're pretty happy he's gone. So I think this one's going to be tricky because it's all going to depend what system Richard Keogh plays. If he plays the system that fits the players, Blackpool will win. If he doesn't, then this could be a draw, in my opinion. I can't see Cambridge winning it.
But is Richard Keogh a good manager?
He wasn't a very good defender, let
alone... I've seen one Blackpool, I think it was a Blackpool fan on Twitter, reposting the announcement that obviously he'd take charge for this game. I think they said this has got all the hallmarks to go catastrophically badly. So based on that one Blackpool fan's observation, I genuinely think Cambridge United have got a chance. I think it'd only be Gary Monk's 3rd win at the club, but 1-0. 1-0 Cambridge. I just, based off that one Blackpool fan's opinion on Twitter, which is the only thing I've seen in regards to this, I'm going for Cambridge to take this.
Okay, I've gone for another draw. I've gone for another 1-1 draw. So draws are plenty this week. So if you do bet, then my accumulator is going to be huge. But if you do bet responsibly. Next one is probably the biggest game of the weekend in League One, but we covered both teams last week, is Charlton Athletic versus Bolton Wanderers.
Proper top of the table clash.
Proper top of the table. 2 teams you'd expect to be at the top of the table. 2 clubs who have beautiful stadiums, Premier League quality stadiums. Yeah. How this is a League One game is beyond me. I know it has been for a couple of years now. I can't understand them how. Both because they've had nutty owners, quite frankly. Yeah. And it has the potential to be a pretty good game. Obviously, Bolton kept a clean sheet with a 0-0 draw against Wrexham, and Charlton haven't conceded yet, with one winning 2 1-0s. So it epitomises, as we've said, a Nathan Jones team that they don't concede and they hard work and they're very good out of possession. This is, I think, another really tricky game to call. But I have gone for 1-0 to Bolton.
Thing is, at the start of the season, I am a big believer in home advantage. I'm a big believer in home advantage anyway, but especially at the start of the season when the form guides are scrapped and whatnot. And the atmosphere around Charlton seems pretty good. Seems fairly, I don't want to say, I don't want to say seems confident, but it just seems quietly assured
Yeah.
of what's going on there now. I think there was a lot of worry last year, but they seem quite assured, and obviously only goal difference keeping them off the top of the table at the moment. 2-1 Charlton, I think.
Oh, okay. I like this. We've got a lot of different ones again this week. Next is your boys Lincoln City versus Mansfield Town.
Thing is, I really don't want to be offensive to Mansfield Town here because they are ahead of us in the table, and obviously a win and a draw for them. But for Lincoln, this is probably a game that I think they can do all right in.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is almost like the perfect kind of game for Lincoln. I think to almost be able to play the type of football they want. I think it'll be. I mean, it's still annoying that Joe Taylor isn't wearing a Lincoln City shirt yet, and I feel like all of these. I mean, there's still 2 days. It might be announced within the next 2 days. It won't, but it might be. I don't think it'll happen, but I've said the closer it gets to the end of the transfer window, the more happy I am that it'll happen. I don't know why Huddersfield think they need another striker. Sod off. I've seen rumours that Derby need another striker.
Derby do, yeah.
Stay away from Joe Taylor. I know Luton and Derby are at different ends of the league. They'll be hoping they're at different. Well, Luton will be hoping they're at a different side of the league. Derby, but anyway, that's for the Championship people to discuss. So Joe Taylor, I feel like I want to put an asterisk on this one. If Joe Taylor joins, it will be 5-0. If Joe Taylor doesn't join, it'll be 2-0 Lincoln City.
Oh, okay. I've gone for 2-1 to Mansfield.
Sod off. You've also written it on my predict. You've written it as it's me giving Mansfield the victory, and I'm not having that. I saw you do that. I was like, is he trying to predict me giving Mansfield the win? I'm not having this.
Next on the list is Wigan Athletic, who have had a pretty disappointing start by their standards, not scoring and losing both their games, playing Crawley Town, who have had the complete opposite of starts, winning both of their games. It's probably a tie that Crawley Town will relish, going to a stadium like the DW, FA Cup winners.
I'm on the Crawley Town hype train now. I can see kind of Wigan. Not again. Like it's kind of like this home. There is such thing as momentum this early on in the season, but it's not a huge thing. So I don't think I've predicted many draws actually. So 1-1.
1-1. I've gone for 2-1 to Wigan, and I think they'll get their season finally underway.
But no, I should say a good start to the season for Crawley. Again, a fan base that have often accused us of saying they're making up the numbers. But I'll admit it now. If you're still listening, 49 minutes into this podcast, you're doing all right this season.
I think as punishment, if Crawley Town get top, well, I would say stay up, but that might happen. Top 6. If Crawley Town get top 6, all 4 of us have got to go buy Crawley Town shirts and wear them for our season review.
Oh yeah. I
think that has to happen. Next on the list, into the final 2 games, is the second to last is Wrexham versus Reading. Both teams are still unbeaten with 1 win and 1 draw.
It's how much will that lack of? I mean, how much will that lack of Femi Azeez? He's not played much this season.
No, he's played 20 minutes.
But just how much of a hole is that going to cause, and how much of just how many points can Reading get before injuries start becoming an issue? 2-0 Wrexham.
2-0. Yeah, I've gone for 2-1 to Wrexham. I think at home they're going to be especially strong.
But Reading, I mean, it is a great ground, the race course. Purely just the atmosphere that you always see in at that stadium is something quite special. I will begrudgingly admit that.
And then the final game is Wycombe Wanderers, who again lost both their games, but they seem to be scoring lots this year with 4 goals in their opening 2 games, but have conceded 6, which is the joint worst with Burton Albion, which has surprised me. Obviously, last year they ended the season really, really well under Matt Bloomfield. I got to the EFL Trophy final as well, but a disappointing start. A bit like last year, slow out of the blocks. Versus the Rotherham side, who we all expected to do really well. But they've not scored a goal yet and conceded one. And Big Steve's already had his touchline ban in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy and an FA fine. So he's started the season like he means to go on. I'm thinking another draw here. I've got lots of draws this week.
I think that the more I look at that appointment of Steve Evans at Rotherham, the more I think it was a bit stupid.
There's a lot of murmurings. I don't know if you've heard about Rotherham players not being happy.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it at one point during the podcast last week. I don't know. We don't know how reliable they are, but there are a few, like whispers.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense because Rotherham, if you're going to be at the top of the league like Rotherham, you don't win a league being like Stevenage were last year. You get an underperforming underdog side into the playoffs like you nearly did with Stevenage, but you don't get a Rotherham into the Championship again. You just don't. That's not. I sort of thought that at the time, but I kind of went with the he should do all right. But I can genuinely see Wrexham scoring 2 goals in off their arse and Rotherham still not scoring, and Steve Evans blaming the fact that the pie was lukewarm or some shit like that. Getting another ban.
Was too bobbly.
Yeah, or some crap like that. Gareth Ainsworth hair got in the way or something, even though he's not there or whatever. His hair got in the way or some shit like that. And it'll be 2-0 to Wycombe.
Okay, I've gone for another draw. I've gone for a 1-1 draw. Beautiful. So they are the scores we think will happen this week. I'll do the graphic again for Saturday morning. So make sure you follow us on Twitter at League One Lowdown with the number 1. And if you want to, follow us on TikTok at League One Lowdown, but all words. So League One Lowdown, all in words this time instead of the number. We're going to try and be a bit more active on the old TikTok, even though I have no idea how to use it. I'm like a dinosaur with that. But Mr. Callum here knows how to use TikTok. So maybe you'll see his lovely face on the old TikTok page a bit more. So if you have enjoyed, make sure you leave us a rating, leave us a comment in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube, what you think of this week's results, and look after yourself, and we'll see you on the next time.